Hey, this is Nic Romolini, and welcome to episode 4 of The Blank Page, a podcast about creativity, neuroses, and where the two meet. This episode is with comic and writer Fred Belford. Fred started out as a stand-up comic in LA and has been working as a writer in the business for the last 20 years. This episode was a little bit different than the previous ones. I don't think I was super clear about what exactly the show is and the depths that I like to plumb, and it turned a little bit more into an interview than a conversation, and that was great too. I actually learned quite a bit from Fred, his career path and his experiences out here in LA. So I was super grateful to have the conversation, even if I internally have been freaking out that it wasn't exactly what I think my show should be. And ultimately, the whole point of this show is for me to try to process through all these emotions and neurotic blocks that I have. So one of them this time was not thinking this show was exactly what this show should be. All of that said, Fred is fucking great, and I really appreciated him coming on and having a conversation with me. We talk about his career path. We talk about stand-up. He has a great David Schwimmer story. We talk about his time working with Russell Brand, his time working with Will Forte. We talk about failure. We talk about his time writing for the MTV Movie Awards, selling shows, submitting, particularly to late-night shows. My struggles to break into the business. He had a lot of great advice for sort of getting in the door. He talked about the time that he was a runner for a management company and setting off Brett Butler's alarm system. At one point, we discussed anime that I have absolutely not even the first fucking clue about, but I went with it. And he talked about the excuse list, making your excuse list and crossing off every last fucking excuse on there until you've made the thing that you want to make. It's just a conversation with a cool-ass funny dude who's been doing this for a very long time. Enjoy my conversation with Fred Belford, and thank you so much for listening.
Yo.
Fred Belford.
What is that? Nic Romolini.
What's going on, buddy?
Same old wonderful. I haven't worn headphones in so long. It's weird.
Are you wearing like in-ear or over the ear?
Oh, in ear.
Okay.
But it go like 4 or 5 inches into your ear. So
all the way
really
in.
Amazing.
It's a full sort of eardrum probe.
It's pretty amazing. And then I'll know if I have COVID afterwards.
Will they actually wrap around all the way through your sinus passages? I guess so.
Unfortunately, I can't do that. Like I can't even neti pot. So I don't know the full joys of whatever that would be.
So it's Sunday, and basically I don't know about your neighborhood, but it's basically the only day I can possibly record due to the sort of unconscionable amount of construction that happens. It's actually kind of quiet today, and it's unnerving.
It's that weird thing where you're like, oh, construction is over, and then you just hear a leaf blower. You're like, oh yeah,
exactly.
Hey, here we go, Sunday.
Gardeners are always staying busy.
Yeah, they're just like, wait, is everybody asleep? I'll just show up tomorrow and just turn that on, and then we can do it. I just leave it in the front yard and I leave.
How often would you say you berate yourself?
Berate myself?
Berate yourself. I only ask because I'm a person who constantly berates myself, and in the writing process.
Oh, in the writing process. I will say this: it is a constant cycle of adulation and beration. Like, hey, that's pretty awesome. Oh, it's just this wild ride. It's always up, and for every time I berate myself, there's a moment where I'm like, genius. No, you're not. That's sort of my cycle.
Totally. And there's no like just riding some sort of even line ever.
No. And I wish I was one of those. Like, I think there's two kinds of people like that. There's the people that are just like so good, and they're just like even keeled of like, cool. And you're like, and they keep this,
fuck those guys.
This level of just good. And then there are other people that suck. No offense, but I've been thinking people are terrible, but they're like, yeah, it's great, man. It's great. Everything's great.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, I get it. Reality is not a thing for you. So you'll probably be sane because you're not in the real world.
Right.
But, no offense to anybody I've worked with that thinks they suck.
Oh, well, they can only suspect.
It wasn't them.
I mean, you've been doing this for a while, right? I mean, you've been at this a long fucking time. So to not have found, I mean, I guess that
to not be successful by now.
No. I was gonna say to not have found that like even level of like sort of, you know, not constantly vacillating between self-hatred and like self-adulation, you know?
Well, I think it's also I didn't start out wanting to, you know, I'm not like I started out doing stand-up.
Tell me about that.
It's where you stand on a stage and you tell jokes into a microphone.
Unfamiliar. Tell me more.
You've heard Dan Cook, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just him.
Oh, got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then they
so you got to be funny to do it, obviously.
or look good without sleeves and rolling on the ground doing an impression of a snake. You can do one or the other.
There are two paths.
But he does them both beautifully.
Wow, shredding Dane Cook, not what I expected.
I'm not. I'm saying he's fine. He's. I would slit a throat to be in his shoes. Yeah, man.
So you didn't set out to write, basically. You started as a stand-up.
Stand up and stuff like that, and then then you start. I fell into writing, and you just kind of like, okay. But when I fell into it, I'm always around people that are just like, I went to college for it. I did this. I did it in the Harvard blah, 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 lampoons. And so there's always a piece of you that's just like maybe I'm not so good. I do a lot of spell check.
Right.
And then, but by now, I would say actually by now I'm actually fairly confident. Like when I walk into a room and I'm like, look, here's what I'll give you. Here's what you're going to have. That's how good it's going to be.
Right. Because at this point, you know what you're bringing to the table, basically.
Yeah. And I think it's just like, I used to just be like if someone gave a note, I was just like, I'd be like, they're fucking wrong. How dare you?
Right.
But then, then you go through the phase of it's like, oh, they hate it. And then now it's just like, no, I'm just like, hey, it's just business. That's kind of what it is, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess it just takes repetitions to get to that place. Of like, oh, I got notes. It's not because I'm a piece of shit and I can't do anything. This is just how this business works.
Yeah. And it's just a thing of like, you never know what someone's going to like. I think that there's two things that everybody thinks they can do. Well, three things everybody thinks they can do. Edit. Like when you're editing, everyone's like, oh, let's do this. Like they talk like, now just twirl it around and turn it up, like, hey, there's a process. I have to cut this down. I have to do that, but it's just like, you want me to do it? Like, I love being an editor when a producer goes, you just want me to do it? Like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, please jump
ahead.
Jump right in. Here, I'll actually just hand the keyboard and the mouse over to you and you take over.
Yeah.
Christ, as an editor, this hits home.
Yeah, no, and there's two things. Then the other two things are writing. Everyone in this town is a frustrated writer because they all think it's super easy.
Do they do it?
Do you know what I mean?
It's because they don't do it. So they think that they can do it better, of course.
But so many people sitting there saying like, here's what I would do. It's like, no, here's what you would do. You'd sit in front of the computer for about an hour and a half, just looking at it and then go, you'd write a few pages, erase a few pages. Right? It's a process. So when they treat it as a sort of like, and so many people like, I've had so many producers like go, here's a script, take a look at it. And you're like, okay, see, I'm going to tell you right now, it's showing you why it's not easy.
Right.
Like, and the other thing people always think they can do is animation voices. Like whenever I work in animation, everybody suddenly is like, I do voices.
Everyone turns into Robin Williams from Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, it's like so much. Like, hey, you talk to yourself in your car. That's different.
This is a craft. It takes work.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, I'll give your name to the lady, the casting lady.
It really is. I mean, it's a business full of such audacity. Like, I wouldn't go to my accountant's office and be like, I could do this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could do this. What are you doing over there? Let me see. Actually, let me see that form. Hold on. Did you put that in right? Like, what? No. Like, respect the people who do the jobs. I mean, it's crazy. And
exactly.
If you want to be a fucking voiceover artist, go audition. Go do it.
Well, like I love the thing of like people have dedicated, years of their life.
Right.
It's like, I would like to just take the shortcut, and that's a lot of this town. It's like,
totally.
What's the shortcut that I can just do what you do without all the years of hard work?
Right.
But for some reason, it's the opposite for directors. I feel like that is 90% attitude. Like, yeah, I'm a director. Like I've seen people just go, like just become directors by saying they are.
Right.
And it's also the one where nobody, like, you don't sit there and go like, well, here's what I would do if I was a director. Everyone's just sort of like, okay, well, that's the director. It's like, okay.
Right.
Whoever their PR person was, they amazing.
Right.
Great job.
So you started in stand-up. I mean, you go back like early 2000s, right? Is that when
Earlier.
Are you from, you're from Stockton, right?
I'm from Stockton, California.
Okay.
Home of murder. And
drugs, right? Meth?
Yeah, well, how you got to murder for the meth.
Makes sense.
Yeah, right. And then, by the way, one of my favorite metal bands, Murder for Meth. Trademarked.
Yeah, I know. I was just gonna say that. Let's call it out. Just call that out right this moment.
We find out like half of Stockholm, there's like 20 Murder for Meth bands.
Right, exactly.
We are murder for meth. So then, and then I did stand up in college. Is when I went to San Francisco.
Okay.
In the 90s. It's the only reason I went to college was because I wanted to get to San Francisco.
Okay, so it was like, get me the fuck out of Stockton, and I'll get to San Fran. And then when you got there, you were like, people tell me I'm funny. I'm going to get on stage and tell some jokes.
Well,
what drove you there?
I mean, nobody's going to care. If you're still listening to this, why? You can tune out.
Yeah, just skip to all the tips. Just skip to all the secret codes, like the Contra code.
We're like, who's this doofus talking? Why are we listening to a guy who rents? He rents. That's this guy.
It's the whole point. It's for all the other people who rent. Here, you could rent maybe a little better.
Okay, here we go. Here's the trick. You don't have to pay to the fifth. In high school, I went from Stockton. Like, I lived everywhere in California. Okay. And then Central California, and then more Central California. And then the last few years of high school, I ended up in Orange County. But it was weird. I came from Stockton, which was very urban, to like city. And then to like a kind of those like Salinas areas in North Monterey County.
Right.
Castroville, home of the giant artichoke. And it's not a joke.
Shout out to the artichoke.
Giant artichoke.
I mean, I love artichokes. I just wish I was better at preparing them.
Oh, no, they grow like weeds there. And I'm not kidding you. Like, I had a bunch in my backyard, like artichoke plants. And we're like, what's this?
Throw them into the green bin.
Right?
They do flower beautifully. I mean, that purple flower is unlike anything I've seen.
It's all right. You know, we call them weeds when we're in Castroville.
Right.
Because there's too many of them. But they, and then I go to this by Dana Point, which is like super rich, super wealthy people. Well, I was there for a little bit, and then someone was like, hey, we're going to go surfing for lunch. Do you want to go? I'm like, sir, what John Hughes movie did I walk into that you could surf for lunch?
Amazing. And
somewhere around there is when I was like, I'm either going to go into politics or I'm going to go into comedy. And depending on what universities reject me,
right?
Politics rejected me, and SM State was like, "Yeah, we take everybody. Come on in." So I was like, "All right,
perfect." So you started telling jokes. You were in San Fran for a while, then you came down to LA.
Did some stuff down here for a while. It was fun. Got into the improv scene. That was lame. But
it sticks with you forever. The improv scene.
It's weird. It's one of those things that when you're doing it, you're like, yeah. But then you like. It led to stuff that I'll sit there and go like, I cannot believe I ever did this. Like,
totally.
We got this gig through improv. And every time I'm at Universal City Walk, it's just like this huge swath of memories. I was just there like at the City Walk during Corona time.
Nice.
And I assume that it's going to look the exact same when the zombies come. I mean, it just feels really creepy.
100%.
In front of the movie theater. Okay, there's a giant movie theater there. Like a 15-plex. And the theater's big. And I had a gig. It was me and like 3 other dudes, and we had to wear these like old timey ticket taker kind of movie theater things, like a pillbox hat and a little green like half jackety thing, and pants with the stripes on the side.
And it was in black and white.
I wish. And then we have to go in front of a movie theater, unannounced, and just start doing improv for people. Like, hey, we're the thing we call like ticket takers. Well, ticket takers.
Wow.
And we just do improv in front of like, like, it's like, hey, before the Avengers, fuck you. Hey, you in the back. Well, keep it clean. I need an emotion. Eat a dick. All right. Petulant. Here we go. And it's just like, it was like the worst thing.
Right.
And like, It should be called. It would be better. Okay, we're gonna stand here. If anyone wants to throw, yeah, that's right. Kid, throw those M&Ms at us. That's smart. That's what we're here for. You fucking fuck. So like, it was like that was improv.
But
and
improv and stand up though both kind of. I don't know. You're so vulnerable that like you have to find some sort of confidence as a result of that, right? I mean, because you go up on stage and like you're just fucking exposed, so you have to figure it out, right? I mean, in both instances, improv a little more, of course, but
I feel for me I was miserable up until I stepped on stage. Then it was just like then I never worried.
Stand up, you mean, or both?
Yeah. Both of them,
right.
both of them. And then it's never like like you don't bomb as much as you think, and then when you do bomb, it's like okay, like I don't care. When you're on stage, it sucks afterwards if everyone does great and you bomb.
Right,
that's the worst.
I've been thinking about stand up as just sort of like not because I'm like I'm funny, I'm a funny guy, I should get up there, but as like a way to sort of build some confidence. And I mean I know I can tell funny stories and shit like that. But I think that first of all, I don't buy that. If you want to stand up, go to stand up. But it's not to build confidence. You don't go stand in front of people while they, like you hate yourself doing stand up sometimes. Not a confidence builder. But on the other side of it, right?
If you're knocking it out of the park, but if your opening line is "I'm not funny," I'm gonna go. It's like, well, you're already taking a step in the wrong direction to come from confidence.
What I'm trying to say though is like if you put yourself in that vulnerable of a situation, like everything else is kind of easier after that.
I don't know.
No, you don't think so? I was just curious if you found that like in doing that and the feeling of like, oh, this is awful, I'm on stage, okay, I'm doing it, it's okay, and like you do it, and then when you get through it, you're like, okay, well, I can tackle whatever the next challenge is in my fucking day.
If you're wired like that, I guess. I'm not wired like that. So
right.
If I wasn't doing well in stand up, it would bum me out. Like I would be like, shit, man. I would be embarrassed. I'd be like, there are some people I remember people, didn't get a lot of laughs. They're like, I told everybody to be here. I filled it with my family. You're like, really? Like you don't want to get a little better what you're doing?
Right.
But there's some people I'm like, I'm not saying they're, like they give up. I'm just saying like, it's impressive.
Yeah.
For me, I would like be middling and I'd be telling people like, yeah, don't come. I don't know if it's going to be a perfect show.
Right.
I would much rather be the guy that goes, oh, you missed an amazing show last night. Mm-hmm. Things are showing up and gooching me.
Totally.
Like I will still sometimes sit there and think like, oh, that one show, here's what I should have done.
Right.
Like, like I remember I had to go to the Montreal Comedy Festival. I got in that and that was really exciting.
Oh, nice.
In the New Faces program. And it's like a career launching thing. So I'm like, oh, it's cool. Let's start doing, and I used to do like weird stuff. And the guy who was running goes like, I want you all your weird stuff. And I'm like, are you sure? I should probably just do my stuff that, more inclusive. Right. He's like, no. Because we don't have anybody that does stuff like that on the show. I want you to have a distinct voice, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sure. The guy running it, how can he be wrong?
Right.
And it's called like the college, the New Faces program. It's like in front of the college stage. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is great. Like everything's coming up, Fred, because like, my weird stuff at colleges, I was just like, easy peasy.
Right, and that's the best place for it, right?
Yeah. And then, and Dom Irera brought me on. He was the host that night. And it's one of the few times where I could feel like my bones kind of shake. Like, oh, fuck. Is that thing where your inner monologue is, fuck. Like it was, I walk on stage and it's just packed with like people in their 50s and 60s.
Oh no!
All like I think it was like a church social. It felt like.
Oh fuck!
And so I'm doing like this weird stuff, and then it's just like they're looking at me like no, like nothing. Like and I'm like, this is my career.
Oof.
And in my head, I'm like, you got to switch, but like you can't, do a joke. And I'm like, you got to switch this stuff. And I was like,
right.
No, if you do that, it'll look even weirder. I'm like going through this like inner monologue, like. Anywhere but there.
Fuck,
and then
that's got to be crazy on the fly, that inner monologue.
And it's fine. I barreled through it and I got, but it was like I pushed through it.
Right.
And I knew I wasn't going to get any TV deal that night.
Right.
And then he would know, Dom Irera doesn't know me, but like as I walked off, he just said something like, no, man, that was really funny. Don't let it get to you.
Nice.
This sort of thing's like, hey, I think you're funny, but at the same time, confirming like, yeah, nobody else liked you.
Right.
I was like, thanks, Tom. And then, so I walked out there going like, and you still have to like pretend like you did well.
Right.
Like, hey. And then like 2 days later, I had my next show, and I was like, I'm changing. I'm going to like the stuff that everybody likes, and I fucking kill. But it doesn't matter. Your first night was the night that everybody comes to see you.
Right. It's
nobody comes to see new. Yeah, it was like, well, you're not a new face with the guy the other night. It was like, but
you were a new face then. 2 days later, you're not. Yeah. You're no longer a new face.
Yeah, and so this is like one of those kind of lessons. And then I remember I was on stage, like I was doing Largo when it was on Fairfax. I used to do that show a lot, and I remember I had a really good show. And this guy comes off, and he's a producer or a manager. I don't know what he was, but he's like a big dude. So you come off, the way Largo used to be, there's like a little foyer that nobody can see you that's watching. So you exit the stage in this foyer. And he was like waiting for me. He just grabs me. He goes, that was amazing. I'm so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. And I go, oh, okay, thanks, man. And I was like, and I remember like I messed up one joke. It was still hilarious, but I messed it up. In my head, I'm like, show them that you're humble. I don't know why I'm always like humility. If you are getting into any kind of business in this business, my number one advice is don't be humble and don't be arrogant, but don't be humble. When someone says you were amazing, just say thank you.
Right. Don't be like, oh, I wasn't. No, I could have been better. Oh, I bombed that one joke. Oh, like
that's the Fred Belford school. And I go, no, I messed up that joke. And he goes, oh, really? I go, yeah, it was terrible. And then he goes, oh, like,
I guess you were.
So literally, I ruined this moment. I'm killing this moment. I hear the guy that came up after me, and there's no, he's not doing great. And he comes off stage, and I knew the comic, and I knew it was a bad night for him, and I knew it wasn't great. So he comes off and sees the guy, and he knew who he was. And he goes, "Hey man, did you come see my set?" And he goes, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I was talking to Fred." And he goes, "Oh, it was amazing. I just did so amazing. The crowd loved it." He goes, "Really? Well, you come in my office. We got to talk about this." And I was like, "Oh, I've just learned my first lesson on confidence." It's just like
projecting confidence at all times, basically. That keeps being a theme of this shit, man. Like the more people I talk to, the more they're like, yeah, it's just like you need to have this irrational confidence, whether you're good or not. And I'm like, and
it could be a lie. If you can, you can pretend you're confident, and that'll work just as well.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. So what was your what was like the first win for you? Like, I mean, you were stand up. You just mentioned the Montreal thing. What was like the two parts, I guess. What was the first thing that took you from the stage to actually writing professionally? And also like, what was your first fucking like, this is it? Or like I made it in some capacity. Like what was the first breakthrough for you, I guess, in your career?
God, I don't know. Maybe tomorrow I'll have a breakthrough. Career stand-up wise, there was a bunch of them where you're like, okay, this is it.
Because I feel like I met you a couple years ago, but I feel like your face looked familiar. So like were you televised?
I did like just some NBC thing, and okay. Like nothing major. But I never auditioned for late night anything.
Okay, those things require auditions.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Like or them being in the audience, seeing you perform. Right. That was one of my one things I just never. It was brought up a couple times. I was like, no, let's because you have to have a pretty tight vibe. And I was like, for me, I came through the alternative scene as
like
one of my.
I need a loose 30.
Yeah, that's kind of it. And I can do it. And I do a tight 1.5, right? And then call it a day. That's all I have, people.
Go take a nap.
More time. Oh Christ. All right. Well, I gotta go put money in my meter if we're gonna continue this shit, because they ticket until 10 here, West Hollywood. But no, I had a couple great moments on stand-up. I don't know if this is gonna be a good story, and I don't know. You can probably cut this out.
Tell it. I'll cut it. Fuck it.
Okay. Like on one of my best nights in stand-up was Largo was doing this 1 year anniversary, and I just was on the bill. And it was like me and everybody you can think of from all my friends in San Francisco. Patton Oswalt, Margaret Cho, I think, was on this thing. Greg Barrett was there. Tenacious D. I've had to follow the Tenacious D when they first came out one. Like, in this like little bar. And I was like, Fred, you can go about this little band. Like, oh, okay, no worries. And I was cocky. Like, I'm, like at this point, I'll admit I was a little unstand up. Like, there was a moment in my life when I was like, I was confident. I was, like, oh, don't worry, I'll get them.
Right.
Like, oh, unreal, fucking, I don't care.
I can follow anybody. I got this.
Yeah, I'm not worried about bullshit. And he's like, and I just spent my entire 5 minutes going, are you fucking kidding? I'm not following this band. They're amazing. Like, just praising them, going like, you guys are amazing. I've never seen you before. You're incredible. Like, I have no business even trying to tell a joke right now. All I can do is maybe. Right. And then like Mitch Hedberg went up before me once.
Oh,
and I'm like,
fuck.
Yeah, you're just like, oh shit. He was always like always that. I mean, always just super, super funny. And then like a couple things like that where you're just like, oh, like because like on like a showcase thing, there's no higher, open, middle, da da da. It's just sometimes I would fall in just bad places. Right. And then people like that were always amazing. But then one night I'm there and it's just it's packed. And it's packed to the point where you can't get like people are I hadn't seen that packed before. People are like clinging to the back wall. It's like filled because Tenacious D had just blown up and they were going to close the show. Like they became like I think it took about a week before they became like the hot. Like it was like so this was like before I'd gotten all my like I did a bunch of like TV warm up gigs and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I'd written for a cartoon or two at this point, but nothing like and I do gigs, but they pay like 500 here, 500 there.
Sure.
And at that point, it felt like 100,000. And then, but I had a day job, and I worked at Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf on Sunset Boulevard.
Nice.
What's crazy about it. Okay, so this is the 90s, and they had, this is before Starbucks had their, whatever their frozen drink is called, the Frappuccino.
Sure.
And if I hope they're a sponsor because we just made them a lot of money. So like, so before the Frappuccino was the thing called the Ice Blended, and when this came out, it was like they split the fucking atom. Like who likes radium? And it was like. So
so Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf was actually the originator of the Frappuccino, is what you're getting at. Wow.
At least in LA. Just
rewriting history here for everybody. Just setting the fucking record straight.
Know your frozen coffee shit.
You still work for Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. Still catching residuals.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the 3 left in the mall. This one's actually closed down now. But it used to be right there by Chin Chin, and I think it's called the Beverly Sunset Junction or something like that. So where Sunset Beach starts to become Beverly Hills thing.
Right.
Rich people come through there.
Right.
So every morning it was a combination of Russian mafia, celebrities, rich people, and porn stars. I mean, it was just constant. You're like, hello, John Ritter. Hello, Russian mafia.
Awesome.
It was insane. I mean, in hindsight, I was like, I loved it.
Right.
I remember Cindy Crawford came in. You got to take their names, and I'm like, Jesus. Name, and she just like laughed. She goes, Cindy. And I'm like, yeah, okay, arrogant, number one.
Right.
But she was, but like, I never had a problem with a celebrity.
Right.
John Ritter was exactly who you think he is, the nicest, like coolest guy.
Mm-hmm.
And like everyone, like so many people come in, but there was one celebrity I had a problem with. So this is the story, and I hope he's not listening because
nobody's listening.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he's not listening. Hey, Fred, why waste all that hope when you can just shut the fuck up and tell a story? Because he's not listening. But David Schwimmer.
Okay. Wow.
He was a really kind of a cocky asshole at the time. Now they had just gotten like their $1 million, like you're $1 million an episode guy.
$1 billion, right? Yeah.
It was this crazy thing, and he was like, and like, but he'd still come in with this sad face, like, and not only that, he'd come in like at the busiest time in the morning, like there was when we would have lines out the door, kind of shit,
right.
And it's like, you can send an assistant; it doesn't have to be you.
You don't have to do this, Dave.
Yeah, and he would stand in line like and try to like hide his face. I'm like, don't come at this time, then
right.
Like you're, like, and nobody cares. You're standing next to like
John Ritter. Who gives a fuck?
Nobody cares.
Right.
And then and it was, I'm not kidding you. No, I never saw someone go like, oh, you're that guy. It was just a thing of like, okay, and like, hey, do you know Chandler? It was like, maybe it was probably what anyone said to him.
Right.
And so then and he's great. I no beef with him now. I don't care. So at some point, I mean, I realized like he had a major crush on my manager. She was this nice lady, Lori. And I called him Lad. It was because I was calling everybody lad for a while.
Were you like working on a thing, just trying something out?
I would just find words that I enjoyed very much, and lad was one of them this time. How can I? And I said, like, how can I help you, lad?
Wow.
And he goes, I splendid. And don't call me lad. Like, really, like this, like, I'm like, whoa. Like, he said it.
That's
like,
how
really
my
shitty.
5-year-old talks.
Well, imagine your 5-year-old doing it really with a dour face and
Right.
$500 million in his pocket. It's like, okay, this is not a good look on anybody here now.
Right.
And so like all that did was make me go like, okay, lad, you got it, lad. And you just get pissed. And I'm like,
wow.
What are you going to do? Have me fired because I called you lad? You can't, like, go for it. Complain. Because everybody does not like you here. And then, but it got to the point where he hated it. He hated seeing me. Because so from that point on, anytime I walk in, I go, let me ask Schwimmer. And I'd like walk over, hey lad, how can I help you, lad? What's going on, lad? Having a good day? And it just you see him like
wow.
infuriated. Like I used to like hide behind the like cake case and just watch him come in and then jump up and go, hello, lad. And you just see him just like he smile and he drops his like frowny like David Schwimmer. And I'm just like, it was so fun.
Wow.
I'd write on the cap, so, you know, like the name, like, okay, what's your name? David, what's your last name? Okay, great. And I just write lad. And then you'd have people going, lad. And I would just wait and just watch him. He would try not to do it. Eventually, that's me. You know, you're like, yeah, that is you, lad.
Shit.
And then for some reason, this became like the most fun thing I had going on in my life. And at the same time,
how could it not be?
Right?
That's amazing.
It was so much fun. And then, I know it started the whole. I remember why I realized I didn't like him. I was sitting there. I'm like, we just tried this new flavor called raspberry cream. Not bad. It was not bad. It's not what you expected it to be. It was better than you think. And he's like sitting there with his friend. And my manager's like, he keeps hitting on me. I hate it. He's like creepy. And he goes like, he kept saying like, hey, what's a good flavor coffee to his friend? And like, I'm mixing coffee. So I'm like 1 foot in front of him. And he's like, to his friend, like, this is the girl I'm going to hook up with or whatever. And then, you know, being all whatever. And I'm like, and she just looks at him and goes, rolls her eyes and walks away. And you look like a chump for a second. So I said, I'm going to throw him a little bone here. And I go, raspberry cream. It's delicious. Like, I get it, buddy. You struck out.
Yep.
And he was just, and I used to go, I'm not talking to you. And he just went right back to her. And I went, oh, okay. This is not a happy gentleman. This is not a fun, we can talk kind of fun guy. And then the whole lad thing. And it's like, I felt extra glee every time. It's like, you're not a cool dude. At least he wasn't back then.
Right.
And mind you, he has a mansion. He's probably made better decisions.
Small wins, though. Small wins for you, Fred. That's
small wins.
That's it.
So here's the culmination of the whole thing. So then that 1 year anniversary shows up, packed, crazy. And Schwimmer's there with the whole cast of, there's another show, I can't remember the name, it was like Single Guy, maybe? I don't know, it was something like, it was an NBC show that they were like, this is just like Friends.
Right.
And, but it was not. And I went up, kind of towards the middle. So everything was like, energy was high anyways. And before all this, every week I would do reports. Like people would go like, I would do my bits and then I'd do a report on how I ladded David Schwimmer that week. And it would always got to the point where people loved hearing it and became like a fun thing to do for like a month or two.
Report from the front lines of having a day job, basically, like just being a human being. Got it.
But he was universally like, he's got that face of like, I don't like anything and I've got $1 billion.
Right.
So everybody kind of already sort of had a preconceived notion that they didn't like him, and it was easy for me.
Right.
And, I'm like, I'm fighting for you. Fuck Schwimmer. The injustice of it all. And then also at the same time, my career just starts to kind of heat up.
Okay.
And there's this guy from CBS who's like, hey, we're going to pull you in for some development. And I got to like hang out with him. Okay. And he started dating somebody I knew. So I heard all the inside of like, yeah, they like you. Things are good. It's CBS. And I'm like, oh, I love that. That's on big time TV.
Right.
So then I show up to this thing and he's there, the CBS guy. And anyone who knew me, there was like a little bit of a whisper of like, Schwimmer's in the house. Does Fred know? Kind of a thing.
Got it.
And it's like, yeah, of course I know. And then when Lord Schwimmer walks in, Lad Schwimmer, Laddie Magoo, the guy and I'm like, I wasn't going to do anything about it. Just I was like, I'm going to do my bit. It's a big night. I don't want to fuck it up.
Right.
The guy from CBS grabs me. He goes, are you going to do your Schwimmer stuff? I go, no, I was thinking about just letting it go. And he goes, do you want to show on CBS or not? I was like, okay. I think he just, for him personally, he was like, this will be fun. And of course, Fred Belford making the wisest decisions he can make. And so, like, I come in and I did a couple jokes, and then I turned to him and I was like, hey, so I work at this place, and I start telling the story, and he goes, he's right here. You're right here. And I like pointed him out, and I'm like, called him, and he was like, maybe you're not a dick. Maybe Joey's a dick, and you're like really nice, and you just come across that way. And I just like laid into him, and the friend's fervor had hit a peak, so people were excited to take a shot at the king. So like, I had like the crowd, like it was one of the best sets I've ever had. I will say that. The packed house, people, like, kill him, and you're like, no, too far. And then, and like I finish up. And I walk up to Schwimmer, and I'm like, hey, man, I was just doing a bit. And he goes, yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get it one bit at all, and ran away.
Wow.
And then it's funny because on his little actor friends, who collectively were like 5 feet, like tried to like intimidate, like kind of like circled me, like. And
you're like 6'4", right?
And I'm 6'4", and I literally went like they were like kind of standing by the door, like we're like trying to be tough guys. And I laughed, and I remember like I just brushed them aside, like physically brushed them aside. And I went, get out of the way, little boys, like that. Wow. And they were like, oh, because they're actors, and they just thought they were, and like, if we act tough, they'll believe it. And I was just like, this is just a weird. It's all getting weird now.
Oh my god.
So that was kind of it. That's what I did. And then I remember, so I'm working at Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf still at this point, and like, and there's one girl like the next day runs in. She goes, you do work here? Oh my god, it's so amazing. So it's true. And I'm like, oh yeah. And she goes, yeah, I saw your Largo show. And David Schwimmer came in for an audition today. I called him Lad. He hated it. And like, I guess like people come back, and like, so like for next week, people come in and be like, I called Schwimmer Lad. Wow. You're like, oh great. And I, you're like, we did it. Would you like whipped cream on this? Like, like we're look at us how successful we are. And so then my friend said she saw him like at Starbucks, and in the valley by the studios. And she goes, she was with the guy, Joey, and he was hitting on my friend's friend. And then so like Schwimmer was left to talk to her. She's talking to him. She goes, don't you normally get your coffee at like Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf? He goes, yeah, like every morning. And then she goes, yeah, my friend works there. He goes, is he a comic? She goes, yeah. And he goes, come on, Joey, we got to go. You can tell him I didn't get it. I didn't get it one bit at all. And like ran away. And I'm like, and this is like 2 weeks later. I mean, I'm like, well,
wow.
Like I was like, okay, at least, like I had some cause and effect on somebody's life, and where I was supposed to bring joy, I brought pain. But I'm sure like he wouldn't remember any of this. But for me, it was really fun. Those were the good times.
He might still remember it. I mean, that's pretty significant to be called Lad around town for like 2 months.
Yeah, but I think enough time has passed. Like, like
sure.
Celebrities don't care. They don't.
I'm sure Schwims isn't fucking.
It would be
dwelling.
great if he like if I saw him like at one point years later. There used to be a place, a theater on Crescent Heights and Sunset, like Lemley's 5, but I forget what it became, like the Sundance 5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching this like movie with a couple friends, and he came in all by himself and like sat in front of us, and it was so hard not to be like, "Hey, Lad, I'm the guy who calls you Lad." It was years later. It would just be so great, and I was like, he just doesn't. He never seemed happy. Like even though I was looking at him, going like, I actually kind of feel sorry for you. Right. I don't know whether I should. Right. I mean, I think but like it's like. You don't seem like you're never smiling. Like,
it's quite benevolent of you.
Yeah, I'm a sweetheart.
So you worked with Russell Brand for a while.
I loved Russell Brand. Yeah.
So prior to Russell Brand, had you worked with anybody that was that high profile?
The first gig I ever got, like I got some animation stuff. Cow and Chicken, I wrote for them. Right. And I wrote a couple other things.
And that came just from people seeing you on stage, just being sort of recruited from stage.
People. No, that was a guy who was an artist who like knew me from stage. He goes, "You're funny. Come pitch stories." Cool. And that was a weird time. There was this guy. He was writing for it too, and so like he just said it was his birthday, and I'd meet me at this address, and we'll have your interview. And it was a strip joint in the middle of the day, and I'm pitching stories for Cow and Chicken. and it's the day strippers. Like there's nobody here except like 3 guys at the bar. So it's even worse. It's just the women that are just like, it's 1 in the afternoon.
It's the day strippers, man. It's
the day strippers. So it's just even more like even they're like, all right, here's my boobs. And I'm like, I'm just trying to pitch stories, man. If you could just, and he's a guy like literally stuffing dollar bills, going like, that's funny. And you're like, oh god, I gotta go.
But you got the gig.
I got the gig, and then I persevered, and to write for a children's comedy.
Unbelievable! You're pitching children's comedy in a fucking strip club at 1 PM on a weekday.
It was that was that show. I shouldn't say what show it was actually.
Right.
It was just a show for a cartoon type network. And it was not. By the way, it was not the. If the name slips through, it was not the creator. It was the writers. The creators is a super nice guy, and I don't think he would have liked to have known that was happening at the time. So then, I wrote for the MTV Movie Awards when that was like a big deal. That was my first like big gig. It was like, it was fine, but I was like, everybody I was writing for was like so like stupid talented, like, and like real writers, and like Will Forte, like was who I was writing with, and like I remember he was like, come see my thing at the Groundlings, and like I hate seeing people's stuff, and like so I was like, yeah, I'll go. Will's a nice guy.
Right.
I go, and you're like, what the like? This is like unusually the funniest shit I've seen in a while. Like he was so good. You're like, are you gonna audition for SNL? He goes, like you'd say stuff like, yeah, they want me to. I just don't know if I want to. What?
Wow.
What is happening?
Right.
Like,
it's always the ones like that, right?
Yeah, right. And then another one of my friends who was like, he wrote like a million movies, and then and another guy on there who's like the head of like all these sitcoms now, and like, and then there was me. But I remember at the time I was doing stand-up, so I didn't care. Like I was like, this is at my ultimate cockiness in stand-up. So I was like doing really well.
Right.
I'd insulted Schwimmer. I'd failed at Montreal. So like I was on a career high.
Sure.
And then
nowhere to go but
nowhere
down.
to go, but I mean, right? It's like, so this is how God feels.
Or maybe how Schwimmer feels.
I get it now. Now that I look down at the little people, shrimp.
Just waiting to be called lad.
Just waiting to be called.
Is he real little?
No, he's tall.
Okay. It was just all his buddies that were little.
Oh, his buddies were little. Yeah. I wish I could remember their names, but like, if you go look at the show, sure. I really think it's called The Single Guy or something.
Sure.
Everyone in that was these tiny little people.
Sure.
And I wouldn't point out that they're tiny little people, other than
had they not tried to like it reminds me of the when the little kids like pull Kramer down from the fire escape in that one episode.
Yeah. Or what it reminds me of, there's a Stephen Chow movie called The God of Cookery, and there's this guy who's like scrawny, the small scrawny guy, but he's the tough guy in the gang, so he always like flexes his muscles, and people are like, oh, okay, hey. And like that's what reminds me of. It's like hilarious. Like, are you doing a bit? Like, this is great.
You can't possibly be serious.
Yeah, right. Oh, I love God Cookery too, guys. And then I didn't know you were into Chinese cinema so much.
So you're writing for the MTV
Movie Awards, which was this is the Fred Belford trajectory. Okay, this has set my career in writing 100%. So, like, I was kind of like, I was so young and so wild. I didn't care. I was like, I'll go do stand-up. I don't care about writing, but I'm writing for like big people. On like at the time, I remember Jimmy Fallon did something for us because they did a Neo thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I wasn't a dick to him, but I kept talking about stand-up, and he finally just turns to me and goes, I don't know, man. I just did impressions to get SNL. Like, that's kind of like, oh, okay, sorry. And like everybody, I would just like kind of like, I don't know, man. I got along great with my writers, but I just feel like I just was like,
you're just like needling motherfuckers.
I don't know what it was. I was just a rebel,
sure. And
you either like me as the rebel, or you're like, oh, this guy's freaking up shit. But the guy who ran it at the time was this guy who was like, at the time was super powerful, like this, and then, but didn't super neurotic and weird, but like lovable. It's weird, like. You love him at the same time. He's like, I don't know. And I remember, like, you'd write something funny, and you have to turn to everybody and go, is this funny? Is this funny? And you have to have confirmation. And I remember like I'd written a few things that were like, this is amazing. And I wrote something with Will, and they're like, this is great. It was a parody of I See Dead People, whatever that movie is. And I remember it was like where they're going to make it a short film, but then like the people of the I See Dead People, M. Night Shyamalan was like, no, I don't want it. He didn't approve it because it kind of revealed the ending. So they're like, oh, okay. And then we were like, I kept getting close to, and the big deal was you want to get a short film made
for the movie awards. Like that's the
for the movie award.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think of it as like a crown jewel. So I pitched like this Lifetime Achievement Award. They given it to Chewbacca the year before, and Chewbacca had done 3 films at the time.
Right.
And so I pitched. It was before. It was right. I was a huge Mr. T fan, and I'm like, he's gonna blow up. And like, literally, I think Conan had done a bit with him, and I go, he's comedically funny. He's great. And I go, we do a Lifetime Achievement Award for him. He's done like 4 movies. And one more better than Chewbacca.
Right.
And they're like, I don't know. But the whole point is like, just getting Mr. T on stage, the crowd will lose it. And they're like, I don't know. But, and the other writers are like, he's right. It'll be amazing. So I was like, okay, go for it. So I put together this giant package and like stuff for them. Like, but I never like produced anything. So I didn't know. So then I make it and I just go like, okay. I show it and I go, oh, that's great. I didn't know like to go like, so can we follow up on this? Should I go get the people on this? I tell casting. And so like a week before the show, I'm like, so we're not going to do that at all. Goes, well, why didn't you get Mr. T then? Like, you're like, what? Like, right. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what the hell. And then, so I had so many like weird failures that like half successes. Instead of looking at it as like, your first time out, you're fairly successful and you met a lot of nice people. I looked at it as fuck this, I'm never gonna write again. I think was what I said.
Right.
And I was in such a shitty space about it. And that like the night of, he puts his hand out in front of all the writers, like I was late and they're all saying there to shake my hand, and I slapped his hand out of the way and go, like, get out of here with this. I'm like, like
talk about dour.
Like, oh my God, the vice president goes, great show. And I go, the fuck it was, fuck you. Like,
wow.
Because I was just like, I'm burning this place down. Like, like I'm never writing again.
Right.
I'm going to just, I didn't have a perfect experience. Everybody must suffer.
Right.
And I spent the next few years, like, it's like, I'll never need these guys again. I think he still hired me for the next year too. But it was like, I went from like A-list to like G-list real quick. And I was like, well, I'm not going to need that guy again. It's like, oh, he's doing all these great shows. Oh, hey, how's it going?
Hey, remember? No. Hey, I said the show was great.
That was 6 months ago, dude. And so, yeah, so that was sort of a career humbling, and I'm starting over. And then I started selling shows, and that was like same thing. Like you just kind of like, I didn't know what to do. Like, and now I know what to do. But you have to like, the first 2, I was just sitting there going like, okay, what do we do now?
Right.
Like,
I mean, did you have an agent at that point? Like, were you in the door at places because of your, trajectory thus far? Or to that point?
Yes. No, I've always had like, God, this is the most boring interview in the world. How long it took? Like 6 hours?
This is quite a long time.
Yeah, I feel like I'm bumming people out. It's
no,
like,
you're not bumming people out. I think I'm just curious. I'm personally curious about how you sort of, how do you even get to pitch? Like, was that as a result of the connections so you're found on stage, then you're a writer, and now you know people, and now you're like, okay, well now I'm gonna pitch fucking MTV Movie Awards, like
kind of all that, like MTV Movie Awards used to be like. I don't know if I had an agent back then. I know when I first got here, I didn't have I didn't have anybody. So I get here, and I got a job for this manager company, Martin Management. The Martins, they were this Australians, and literally it was like I was their runner. So it was like they had all these giant. Well, they had Colin Quinn, they had. Brett Butler was their biggest client. They had Jeff Dunham. They had like, it just like, and they had like Dana Gould, who was like one of my, San Francisco is like one of those like amazing comics. And then, Louis C.K. and young Louis C.K., who was like at that time like just making short films. He was stand up. I remember I'd seen him do stand up in New York at the time a lot, and he was great. But you can tell like he just wants to be like an auteur.
Right.
And there's things like, hey man, can you take these chocolate candies that are shaped like Jeff Dunham's puppet Peanut and bring that to his house? I was like, what? They just brought it to us. Some chocolate maker sent it. You're like, all right, here Jeff Dunham, here's chocolate shaped like your puppet. Like, and then like, and I remember Brett Butler like loved me for some reason at the time, and she was like, Fred, will you watch my cat over the weekend? And like, I was like, yeah, okay. And like, I remember that she was like, under no circumstances can anyone else be in my house except for you. You got it, Brett. So immediately I'm like,
you want to come to Brett Butler's house?
Let's go to Brett Butler's house. It's gonna be amazing. So we go there, and like, she had this giant cat that was like a 40-pound cat at the time or whatever. And like, it was great. We're like, first starts out, like the refrigerator, woo, blah, blah.
Right.
And then there's like a little bed vibrator, remote control to make the bed move. And I thought, oh, I'll scare the cat out of there because it was under the bed. And I turn on, and the alarm goes off.
Oh fuck!
It was on the same frequency, and it's not like a beep boop beep boop. It was like, it like changes pitches so your equilibrium gets messed up. I'm like, we're sitting there. I'm like, what did you touch? And screaming at my friend like, it's the worst. Okay, fine. Like he's like, I'm fucking. We're like trying not to throw up because it's just like, oh no, the frequencies.
Right.
I call, and she told me like, if the alarm goes off, there'll be a helicopter here within like 2 minutes. So just be careful. It's like I'm calling up security people, going like, hey man, I'm watching the house. Can you not send the helicopter or armed guards? And they're like, who are you? And like, what's crazy is I talked them. It was clearly the worst security system. Like, if you ever rob a house, just call the security system place and just be like, yeah, no, I'm watching the house. It's just messed up. I'm like,
right.
okay, we got it.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's fine. Yeah, we won't send anybody out.
And eventually, I was like, cleaned up as best I could. I was like, I hope you're not on camera. Like, we got to go. And we just left with the alarm going. I was like, maybe there'll be cops here. I don't know. And it was just like a crazy time. And then they'd see me do stand up, and they're like, we want to be your manager. So suddenly all these people had brought all these things to. I'm like,
got it.
I'm now one of you.
Right.
And that helped. They were really good. And then it was just weird. I think it was just weird too, because it's like, now what do I do? I'm the lowest man on the totem pole. As opposed to like, I didn't know what to do, and I knew these people as their runners, so it was an odd relationship.
Sure, yeah. You're already kind of working at a disadvantage because you come from me. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
I mean, they didn't care. They, like, this is
sure,
Hollywood.
But you feel that way.
Yeah,
right.
And then I got, I was at another place, but in between the two, I didn't have anybody, and so I think through stand up, someone says, "Oh, you should submit," and one of the guys I wrote with on the thing said like he read my packet and just brought it to the main producer and was like, read this guy's packet. It's hilarious. And that's how I got it.
Got it.
And then you never know, like, submit. People like hate to do it, but like, yeah, if it's an open submission, do it. You never know.
To what? What do you submit to?
Well,
competitions. Like, I've heard this from somebody else. Like, submit to fucking, write a good screenplay and submit it. But like, what are you talking about?
No.
Submit
I mean,
what?
Okay. Well, there's several. I mean, so for like late night, they have submissions, open submission packets. A lot of them do. Generally, it helps if you have somebody. If you don't have somebody, it just helps to know when it's happening. You know what I mean? Like, and in that case, you just got to keep your ears open, meet people, ask around. And the one thing I didn't do that I would, this is like real advice, is like, there are people who like, I'm like, oh, what are you gonna do? Like, I'm gonna write for late night with David Letterman. Like, oh, okay, good luck. But then they spend years doing,
right.
And then they get it.
Having
like,
that
this
like
is what
singular goal in mind from the very beginning, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're like, I'm going to write a script and get it made no matter what. Like, like people who can do that, like usually get work. Or like there's this girl I knew, she was like an actress, but she was like, at 110% constantly, like, here's my weekly report to everybody and blah, blah. And like, we're dedicated it, called it like a craft. And you're like, I guess. And then she became a writer, and she changed that attitude, switched that over to writing.
Right.
And it paid off. Like, hey, I just got into the Small Town Ohio Film Festival, and you're like, oh, whatever. But it starts to add up, and people start to pay attention. And then she became like a writer for like HBO, and like now she's writing on big shows. And
amazing.
Like, and it's that kind of dedication, and to giving a crap.
Yeah.
Which I do not have.
Right.
And which is all based on just the like. I think because I expected it all to be easy peasy because of stand up,
Right.
And now I'm actually like kind of taking that advice.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm like, I've been out here, I don't know, 8 years or whatever. And like now I'm like trying to claw into sort of the narrative side of the business in any fucking way that I can. I mean, I've directed a short, I've written some things. I've done some acting classes and shit. But like the act, as you know, I was like trying hard for the acting thing, as
You
hard
weren't
as
trying
you
that
can.
hard.
Yeah,
You
that's what
had
I was gonna say.
resumes.
As hard as you can with a kid and like being a full-time editor. Like I totally would have left my editing gig to go audition, but like it just seems like one of those things that's really out of your control. And when you have like a life around you with like a spouse and children, it's like, this is not the fucking way to break into this business. And I love acting. Like I absolutely would. I hope to do that at some point, but it's like, I can write in my house, at 11 o'clock when everybody goes to sleep, but I can't be out at auditions at 11 o'clock when everybody goes to sleep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like,
yeah. I mean, the best thing you can do at that point is like a groundlings class or whatever, but you're still going to be away from your. It's a different thing to sit there and like, hey, honey, I got to go to my improv class tonight. I'll be home around 2.
Totally.
Like it's a weird, good luck with the kids.
Exactly.
It's a different thing when you have kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and that
really
was your
changed
mistake.
the game. That's
where you messed up.
No, it really was though, because like I literally like just threw away my 20s and could have been spending that time actually like working fucking towards something instead of like now trying to.
I hope that you tell that to your son all the time. Like I could have been somebody, but you ruined it.
I look forward to that day. I'm sure he looks forward to that day too. I mean, no, my whole thing now though is that
I'll tell you why we don't have a pool.
My whole thing is that now I'm going to do this in spite of this decision that I made and I want to blame others for. I actually don't want to. I own my shit. Like this is where I am and it's fine. But like, I guess I don't even know sort of where I was going, but I guess as somebody, I'm like so on the, I work as an editor. I do fucking like, well, you know what I do. And I'm so far on the fringes of things, but I do see sort of the only real path towards something with all the constraints that I have now is to fucking just write a script and submit it and have a couple different scripts that are representative of like my abilities. I don't know, man.
Well, there's again, if writing is your like, I might as well do it. Like you should have a passion to some extent.
I certainly do. I mean, I certainly do. I hope it didn't come across in another way.
No, I just want people listening to know, that you're not full of malaise.
Thanks. I hope I've established that already.
Oh, I've just been playing a lot of every week, and it's just not going my way. If I was you, and thank God I'm not. No, like.
Thanks.
If I was you, like you have to write your excuses down on a list and just like cross them off one by one, because like it's a thing where like if you have to start with no real foot in the door, then you have.
I know you.
Congratulations. And then, well, here's the one thing I've learned. Like, let's just say, like I'm in development at a big company right now for writing, and I have another thing that's going out to a big production thing, and like any one of these could catch fire.
Right.
Young Fred would be like, Nick, kick down the door and I'll get you in there no matter what. And I would, and it would, I'd spend a lot of my goodwill and energy doing that, or whatever.
That would not be a wise choice for young Fred.
Old Fred says, yeah, I'll throw your name out once.
Yep, totally.
But no, the truth of the matter is like, no, like you could probably get a writer's assistant gig. And if you can get a writer's assistant gig, take the gig if you want to get into writing, because that's one of the best ins there is.
Right.
And if you're not going to do that, then like your script, you have to think of it as a job on top of your second job. Like,
totally.
Okay, I'm tired, but I'm still going to read my script. You got to go through and go like, this can be funnier.
Yeah.
This can be better. This can be. And to the point where you're like, I think I feel good.
Right.
And then you have to work twice as hard, because then you got to start something new, doing the same exact thing. Because the first thing anybody says to you,
what else you got?
But I love this. What else do you have? Like, and it's this weird game. I don't know, man. So like you gotta. So by the time when things hit, they all hit at once, and then you whatever.
Something.
Then
A friend of mine got into a friend of a friend got into a big festival, and he got his short in there, and he started getting phone calls, and people were like, "What else you got?" And he was like, nothing really. And like that's death. Man. I mean, that's certain death, basically.
Death.
You just have to lie and say, make something up on the fucking fly.
And just I'm working on something huge right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, because then they're gonna go, well, come on in and pitch it to me.
Well, it's that projection of confidence, right? And then you buy yourself the time to actually come up with the thing in that time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, even when they turn you down, they say like, I have an open door at a lot of places. Like, I can now call certain places and be like, I'm gonna come pitching something to you.
Oh, that's awesome.
And come on in.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who would like. A friend of mine said to me recently about a certain company that I'm part of. I don't want to say its name. That's all I need to do is gooch it. And then they were like pulling me in constantly. Like, I don't know how I got in. I just got in. And they're like, we love this show. I pitched them something. They love it. We waited to like for months. We want to buy it. Fell apart at the end for certain reasons. Then they did it again. Second show I pitched them. Blah, 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 blah. Falls apart at the end. So then they're like, come in and pitch again. And I'm like, pitch again? Like, what the fuck? like, you guys, I can't just keep knocking grand slam, like.
Right.
And so I told my friend, I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to tell him to fuck off. And he's like, a young Fred popped out for a second. And he said it best. And he goes like, most companies, especially this company, they're not stringing you along. Like they have no problem saying no to people. It's what they mostly do.
Right.
The fact that they're saying yes, 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 those are great signs. And if a person with healthy confidence would see it that way. And so I was like, yeah. So and then I pitched them something. Then they threw me a small bone to write for them, and then they bought a show. Now it's in development for us. And then COVID happened, and we'll see what happens. But it's a matter of like, you got to be able to keep that pace of like, okay, yeah, totally. Okay, great, totally. And like you gotta. There were nights I was just sitting there till like 5 a.m. going like, what's my what is funny about this show? Like
yeah.
And for me, my biggest motivator is I get the meeting, and then I really work hard.
Right.
I don't work hard to get the meeting. So like, okay, the meeting in 2 days, I really gotta fucking focus and get these shows on the fleshed out.
That makes sense.
And then and if I was you, I would just like, I would take the road of the girl that I mentioned prior, and just really just like get a script that you're proud of and get it out there to everybody. Get another script that you're proud of, get it out there to everybody. So that if one catches, it means all the others are going to catch.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean it's just a matter of working towards the product and sort of steeling myself to do that, And I mean, I've been writing a lot lately, and like I'm moving closer towards that, but it's hard not to get like 5 steps ahead of it and just be like, well, then what am I going to do? Where am I even going to fucking send it? And I got to write another one after it. And like, it's an insane trick that you need to pull in your mind to just fully believe in the thing that you're doing and be immersed in it.
You don't have to believe in it, but you have to like, I think when people go like, the 2 hardest things about writing are writing that first draft, because you keep setting, like you're doing, like you're setting these hurdles that don't exist.
Right.
Like what happens when, I love when people like write something and like, they'll be like, oh man, like what happens if this one studio wants it, but then like, James Cameron looks at it and you're like, what are you doing?
That's yeah.
You're on page 2.
right. Of course. Yeah.
And then, it's like after you write it, that's when, everybody says this, but it's true. Like that's when you actually work. You should have fun writing it the first time.
Right.
You're creating life.
Sure.
Like you're literally Dr. Frankenstein in the best possible way.
Literally.
And then like you take just words and you turn them into sentences and you turn them into paragraphs, you turn them into a script. And if everything goes right, you'll see your words come out of other people's mouths. But it's just a thing of like, I don't know, man. I've had like crazy successes that have all failed.
Right.
And there's an alternate universe where I'm like trillionaire. And then there's the Fred Belford universe where it's just, I'm just now it's taken me a very long time in writing to kind of be like, okay, I can roll with it. What's next? And there are days when I'm like, I give up. I'm done. I want to become an accountant. There are days when I'm like, I'm so cocky.
Right.
And it's just you just gotta find what the middle ground is, and no matter how you are, always have a home base.
Right.
That you have to, like I started doing these like little like videos with my kid for YouTube, and it's you've seen them, they're amazing. But like that to me is humbling because I just make them with her and they're fun. And I have people saying to me, like, you got to go pitch this as a show.
Right.
But I already know, like, I'm like, how do you pitch that? Unless you get 1 million hits, nobody's going to want to see it. Like, the way to pitch it as a show is to not put it on.
Not give it away for free to YouTube, basically, right?
Well, once you give it to YouTube, it becomes about the hits. Like, it's in the,
right.
And I remember, like, early on, I had this weird, I had this guy who was like a big agent. And I did this thing. He goes, I'm going to sell this for you. Do not put it on YouTube. And I was like, I was just going to put it on YouTube. He goes, don't. Because if it gets less than 1 million hits, no one's going to want to see it. But if it's an underground thing that I can pitch them that nobody's seen before, they'll love it. And like, I was like, oh crap. So I didn't. And I sold it at the time to HBO and like, or MTV, then HBO. And like, now that I put something actually on the web, you kind of fully see like, oh, I see. Like, you're not going to get. Like when I worked for Russell Brand, I did something, and it was like it was this like little show thing, it's a little comedy bit, and he loved it. I showed it to him, he loved it, and I said, "Would you tweet about it?" And he goes, "Yeah, totally." So he retweeted and watched this thing my boy Fred did, and I'm like, "Oh right, welcome to billion." Here we go, billions. Yeah. And I think it got like 5,000, 6,000 hits after that.
Wow.
And I'm like, huh, okay, because it's not him. You know what I mean? It wasn't like. If it was starring him or if it was him.
All his followers were like, fuck's your boy Fred? I don't give a fuck.
What the fuck? We've never heard this guy before.
What was it like working with him? I mean, a guy of that sort of level of fame. Like, how do you ever believe anything's good enough? Like, I mean, I don't necessarily want to know, like, is he cool? Like, whatever. Like, for you personally, given our conversation about confidence, like, how do you fucking hand something over and be like, is this good enough?
Well, there's a team that works on stuff that by the time I don't just walk up and here's this.
Sure.
But I mean, with him, like, look, I when I write for shows like that, and I write for like an award show or whatever, I'm like crazy confident. It sounds weird, but like it's not a script. It's just being funny, and that like that's sort of like the written version of stand-up,
right?
Like this. Hey, let's make a bet. Let's do this. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And like, I remember for him, mind you, he was like one of my favorite people I've ever worked for.
Oh, cool.
/ with like he was just great. And then like everything about it. So anyway, because it was almost surreal. It was funny, like he did this thing where he's like, he lived like in the West Side and he didn't want to go to the studio a lot. I'm trying to say things that aren't revealing, but like, and so like he was like, just meet me by my house at this place called the Soho Club, a Soho House. And we're like, so the writers, we'd have to go do our pitch meetings at the Soho House, and like, you're literally like trying to pitch jokes to him. He's like, hold on, there's P Diddy, I'll be right back. He's like every celebrity, you're like, hey, here's Harry Styles. Like it's like, okay, now in this scene, okay, well wait.
Right.
Like this is called Farts-a-Rooney. Then like, and like like when we first walked in there, like originally they were like, who are you schlubs? Like it's just the writing staff. Like, yeah, we didn't know we thought we were gonna get Mexican for lunch, and then but it became like every 3 times a week, and then we start getting like kind of like used to it, like I'll have a drink,
right?
Like, hey, how's it going, star of whoever, and then and then it was just the most surreal way to pitch comedy, but it was at the same time I'm like, I love it, man.
Sure.
It was just weird, like, and you get to spend a lot of time in your car when and like listening to stuff on the way back,
right?
Because you hit so much traffic. But he was great, and I remember like he so when we first started, I guess the guy, I was filling in for somebody, and there was somebody that they was not great. Was like would tell him, they call him Russ, would tell Russ like, was like kind of really like aggressive with his comedy, I guess is the best way, or something, where he was like, he just didn't like him. He was like, and I don't know what the whole story is, but so they were like, just don't be aggressive, kind of thing. And like, actually, but if a celebrity says like, hey, I'm not a fan of blue, like me wearing a blue shirt, I don't want to, that becomes, nobody's allowed to wear a blue shirt. I don't want to see anything blue in this off, everything is like, so I'm sure by the time it came to me, it was just this like weird like telephone game of like, it wasn't don't make eye contact with them, but it was like, just be cool, kind of like, okay, I'll be me and we'll see what happens, like, and it was like, I was not cavalier, but I was like, yeah, like I can't, whatever. So I pitched a few jokes to him, and which was like, they said, don't do your first day out, and I did. I did some stuff afterwards, and he just like looked at me and goes, I like you, you're funny. And I was like, from that point on, I was like, all right. And I remember at the time my hair was kind of like longer and scraggly, and I had to go to London. We were doing shows in London, and if you think he's a big deal here, I mean, in London he's like a fucking folk hero. It was amazing. And so I remember thinking, like, I cut my hair, and he goes, hey, oh, you cut your hair? And I was like, shit, now I get fired. Like, you get that way, like, oh shit, I should have never changed anything that he liked about me.
Right.
But it's just a comment, like, oh, you changed your hair. And then, but he's always nice and super complimentary and super fun, and he was super great. Here's how I will like whoever I'm working with. If they're nice to my family, they're the best. And he was like, I remember we had a show, something went wrong. It was like not a great show. And he was walking off, and like my family had come, and I said like, and he looked like, I just want to go, like some nights you want to stay, and some nights you just want to go. Right. And it was an I want to go night. And I said to him, I said like, hey, I know it's not a great night, but I don't think I said that, but I was like, hey, like, I mean, I knew it wasn't great, but I said, do you want, it wasn't like a bad show, just something went wrong.
Sure.
And I said, say hi to my family. And he just lights up and he goes, yeah, of course. And he's, where's Fred's family? He turned around, he like hugged my wife and was good to my kid. And he's just so like, spent time talking to her and stuff like that. And like, you see my wife like swoon, like he has that charm with women. Right. And I'm like, it's just like, this is your new dad now, stepdaughter. And then, but no, and he was just so amazing. And then also after the show had wrapped, a few weeks later, my family had seen them. He was at the like Melrose swap meet, and his bodyguard, Danny, amazing guy, amazing. Like as if straight out of a Danny Boyle movie, like just like off the charts awesome. And so like he literally goes, boy, I know you, to like my family. They're like, yeah, Fred worked for the show. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, Russ. And he grabs him and picks him up and like, it's Fred's family. And he goes, oh, Fred's, and just like literally picks him up and throws him in front of my family. Like, hey! So like, like that whole group I'm totally a fan of. As far as working for them, like, yeah, I mean, you just gotta like be smart, like, and not overstep your bounds. And like the worst thing you do is think you're funnier than it is not appreciate the person you work,
of course,
for,
right,
/ with,
right.
And like, like try to listen and get a sense of who they are and what they like. And once you kind of get the talent, it's easy,
Yeah.
And that show was just so wild. All you had to do was just be kind of funny on the fly, I think.
Right.
And then he was great. And then I worked for a few big people. I just can't really think too much. But he was one of the more fun people. And then and this other thing, if someone doesn't like your shit or someone says something shitty, that's just them. Move on.
Yeah. It's like, not the end of your career. It's not the end of your life as a person. You're actually not a piece of shit as a result of it.
Yeah, and it's so easy to feel that way.
Of course.
Like, it just takes one person a level up than you to be like, not funny, not great, for you to go like, shit, what am I doing?
Might as well go to chiropractor school.
Do they have a chiropractor school?
I think so. I mean, that feels like always a way out. Just learn to be a chiropractor.
See, I just thought you just learn.
You just get one of those like dangling torsos that's a skeleton, and then you just sort of like osmosis. You know what you're doing.
Exactly.
I'm not shitting on chiropractors. I love chiropractors.
Oh, I'm shitting on them. It's the worst. They're the worst.
Well, I'll leave that for you.
I'm kidding. I've never been to one.
Oh, you got to get to one. How's your back?
I don't know, man. I've nurtured a beautiful little hump on the back, and it's nice.
Just keep it going.
And the loop-de-loop in my spine seems to be fun for everybody. Why?
I don't know. Do you have more time, or do we need to wrap up?
I can do a little more time.
All right.
Are you like you're gonna cut this down to like 3 minutes? I'm assuming because
I don't know. I'm probably not gonna cut much, man. I'm not gonna cut much.
It's weird to say like, what's your advice? And like, I don't know, man. I can tell you all about failure.
Well, it's not. I mean, I don't know. I think what I'm more interested in is process. Like, I'm very curious about like because I haven't done anything. I'm very curious to learn like people's fucking processes. Like, do you outline? I mean, you have an idea, right?
So I have an idea. My process is different. Most people outline and they say like really know it down, and I've done it for like when I worked on a Nickelodeon show, everything's outlined and blah blah blah. But for me personally, I just freeform it.
Really?
And then I know, which is not smart as a writer. So this is what I mean. There's structured writers who go like, all right, let's put it on the thing. And I've been with those kind of guys. And I'm like, A story, B story, blah, 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 blah. And me personally, because comedy-wise, I just kind of freeform it. Like I know where it is, and I know enough about structure and story. And then once I've got like the first draft up, then I kind of go, okay, this needs a story, this needs a this, and there's some bones. But I need to work with something.
Right.
And I think especially like when I write dialogue and stuff like that, it's funnier for me just to go for it. And then yeah, and I think like some guys are really good at story. And story is and it shows a lot of times like a secondary thing for me. And I've just got like I'm supposed to do like I don't like saying names of the places because it's
don't say
weird.
Names.
All right, but I'm just at this place that's fairly big, and they're like, I got hired to write a animation script, but it's like okay, and like and I'm writing like bits and stuff, and like and I've got to pitch them an outline at some point, but I'm like, I'm not sure what the story is yet, but but the bits will help me go like, okay, there's a bigger story here, there's a bigger story here, like
right,
and
so you kind of go from the inside out a little bit.
Yeah, that's how I do it, and it's not the smart way to do it, but it's like, but my strengths are character and dialogue, like then story. Some people they're just like story people, like they can lay it out, and I'm like, okay, and it feels slightly restrictive to me, but it's the smart way to go. But that's just my own personal. But like you wrote something recently, like you wrote a spec, right? Like a sitcom spec.
Yeah.
You don't get cocky about it.
I'm not. No.
It's a pilot, and then I'm teasing.
Or a spec. I don't know what you call it.
It's tough just because you're writing this like
self-confidence right there. Thanks, Fred.
Easy peasy, man.
God,
I think my work is done. No, it's a thing where it's like, like you're in the stage, you're sending it out and getting notes and stuff like that. But it's like, what is your process for it?
For that one?
Yeah.
That started with an outline.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I outlined. I mean, it's what?
I'm joking. I was just shitting on purpose.
I mean, it starts with scenes. Like that whole show idea just started with like, what's the show? It's these guys and what's their relationship, whatever. And then like little scenes would appear in my mind, and then I would fit them into an outline, and then yeah.
But see, for me, the thing is that where I wouldn't be good about that is what you just said is what I would try to do. I would try to fit scenes into an outline. And once you have an outline, it's sort of like, this is the way, this is the race you run. Like it's all paved way.
Yeah.
Don't try to retrofit, and I think it's more difficult because you're like, okay, how do we make the scene funny? As opposed to, all right, I'm going to write, but like,
this scene's funny. Where does it fit into the overall story?
But at the same time, the scene's funny. It doesn't fit. You have to be able to do that.
Right.
You have to be like, and I think that's the problem about doing this way is like, you actually do like double, triple the work going from my way, going to, and but I don't mind that, because I just save all that stuff, and then if something happens with the script, then you have stuff you saved, and you can pitch other jokes, and it becomes other scenes, and then
I mean, you're only tied to your outline when you've submitted your outline to somebody else, though, right? I mean, you could still write out a however many scene outline.
Yeah, but I also feel like once you set your outline, I mean, like if you could, there are people who work on their outline as hard as you work on a script,
right.
That, so that when they write their script, it's just sort of like it feels like smooth sailing,
right?
But I can't work on a outline like that. That makes me nuts. It gets me bored.
So when you pitch something, what do you have to pitch? Generally, is it just you in a room talking, or do you have do you make fucking decks?
Yeah, people fucking love their decks.
They
now.
love decks. That's all I hear about are pitch decks. That's it.
This is, what's crazy? Okay, what? Okay, so if you have a Mac, it's called Keynote.
Sure.
Someone said to me once, and this is crazy. I will say this is crazy. So like, I pitched to this lady. I pitched these ideas at this company. She's a development person at the time, and she was like, "Oh, you just picture the concepts. If you're in there pitching concepts, they may ask you questions about them, but chances are they're like, that's funny. I like that. That's good. Can you come in with that?" And then the next level is when you got to have, like, I'll pitch like 5 things sometimes. Like, and sometimes I've been able to pitch to people where I've pitched this. I've been like, it's this show meets this show. Like, nah, it's this, nah. It's this. Yeah, I love that.
Wow.
And I've pitched other people where it's been like, if you know the executive enough to be comfortable enough to do it, like, okay, here's the setting. It's these people for blah, 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 blah. It's this, and this is an allegory to this. They're like, oh, I fucking love it. I generally, half a page or less, if you're pitching one thing, at that level, at the very first level, for me, it's like this. It's here's what I'll say: if they don't like it, but it's still an okay pitch, you can come back. When you come back to repitch, you gotta figure it's 2 months at the least. And
right.
I'm like, I'm not gonna pitch one every 2 months until I hit it. Like, I pitch like 3 or 4, and I'll hear it, and then whatever sticks. Sometimes more than one sticks and whatever. But they're like, come in. And so I told my friend, like, I got to go to the next level, the vice president now. And he said, like, do a keynote. And I was like, I've never had visual aids. And he's like, well, it's animation, and these people, like, that's how they see things. They don't, your words are great, but they'll buy shows based on people's artwork. Like, oh, that's a great character, like they'll assume something's a great character by the way it looks, and so I'm like, okay. I did a big keynote, and you can go like, and it was like literally just like a pulled stuff off the web, it's like one of those like Pinterest kind of thing.
And Keynote's pretty user friendly, right? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Because I never built a fucking, like, I don't know.
You never built a deck, right?
Never built a deck, man.
But I will say, and I'm a little bit on the deck side, so I do this thing. Woo, we love it. Great. And then I pitched them. The next thing, I didn't do a deck, but I had the same kind of results. But the deck was able to go. It's like this character meets this character.
And you can see it.
Oh, they can see it, and they're like, I can taste it, and you feel like, okay. But
so here's how fucked up I am, though. I'm like, in my mind right now, I'm like, well, how did he actually, like, did he bring in a thumb drive? Did he bring in his laptop? Like, how did who hooked up the HDMI? Like, were they all sitting around,
They'll oftentimes say like, oh, let's hook up the HDMI. It's a mess.
But I'm saying this is the dumbest, like, hurdle that's 400 steps from now. The shit that I get hung up on. It's like, just build the fucking deck, man.
Yeah, build the deck on your computer
figure out
first.
how to show it to them on the day. Like,
that's half the battle, because you sit there, you spend half the time going like, oh, this isn't working. It's not doing it. HDMI, and it always ends with me going, I'll just use my computer.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So like, we wasted 15-20 minutes just on your.
Just gather around.
Now I've got to talk twice as fast.
Right.
It's gather around. And so you can't see this 15-inch
retina screen.
Yeah, come on, guys. So then there's a picture of my kid, and here we go.
Right.
So then so like, so then I just pitched another show to this company, and they were like, we love this idea, but I pitched it to a production company to go out with it, together. And the production company was like, well, we need a deck. Like, okay. And they're like, we'll be on the deck. Like, production companies love to be like, we're the deck company. Don't you worry about that. And it's like,
right.
okay, you're going to turn the background yellow and put in the same pictures I would. But like, they love it. People, if someone loves doing your deck and they're going to do a deck for you, let them, man.
Please.
And then, I gave them notes. That's the other thing. Young me would have just been, I guess, it's fine.
Right.
New me is like,
I can give fucking notes on this deck.
Right? Like, hey guys, I know I'm not like do as I say, but I'm like,
sure.
Look, here's what I would do for here because of this. It's up to you.
Well, it's just confidence that you've built over fucking 20 years.
Yeah. And so, so then by the end of it, you're like, yeah, I can get behind this.
Right.
And then we pitched it. It was funny because then, we love it. We love the deck. We love this. We pitched it to a kind of a big network thing. And they were like, oh, great. Can you get us a 1-page?
Right. Fuck.
I was like, of course we can get you 1 page. It's supposed to be 5 pages. It's cumbersome 5 pages. So then it's like, then you're doing a 1-page deck. I was waiting for like, yeah, can you just put it like the size of a nickel? I can just throw it at my friend. And, and the reason I recommend doing a deck, if you're just pitching a show, if you're pitching a script, why would you do a deck?
So sorry. So wait, so the deck obviously would preclude writing the script. So like once you've the script written, that's it, right? Or yeah, I mean, you tell me.
If you sell a script, you sell a script.
Right.
But if you sell a show, you don't know what the pilot's going to be. You don't know what the script's going to be.
If you sell a show based on a deck, or if you sell a pilot or a script.
If you sell a script, that's the show for you. Like that's probably what they'll make. That's probably what they'll work on. We love the script.
Right.
That'll get you all your work.
Right.
But if you go and you go like, I'm going to pitch some shows to like an animation company or this company or whatever, whatever company, like the first thing, if they buy a show based off your pitch, the next level is development. Then you go into development and then you write your pitch Bible for the next level, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then you come up with concepts come up with your theme, what's your show and a one-liner.
Right.
Like, I am broke. Please make this.
Right. 8 words. An 8-word sentence, please.
It is whatever the fuck you want it to be. You tell me. You tell me. And then you got to make your episode. You got to write your episode like concepts, and then it's like because and everyone wants to weigh in on some level, and you got to just be like, yeah, it's great, instead of like, fuck you, that's not my character. It's like, okay, yeah, what, I'm like, they just want to be able, if it sells, to be like, yeah, I helped them out on all of it, like,
right.
I'm cool with that,
Of course.
They and some of them have really good ideas, and they're like, but overall, it's the more you can be open to like, you don't go, this is the pilot, no matter what.
Yep.
I'm not like you don't know
a fucking word.
You may sell script and go, we want to make this a show, but this is not the episode we want to make.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. But I remember once, this is another one of my great stories, and it's best not to say no flat out. Like, don't say the word no.
Ever.
You can say like, almost ever.
Yeah.
You can say like, if they pitch, like, what if they all had hats? Go, oh, that'd work out great. Oh, but what if they had the hats, but then it got in the way of this scene? So like, we may want to save the hats for episode. Like,
figure
out a way not to tell someone fuck off.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite things that the first show I sold was to Sci-Fi Network when they were like, we want to break into late night animation and do like, at the time, Adult Swim had just happened and like C-Lab 2021 all stuff.
Right.
So like I pitched the show. They went crazy for it, and it was we take an old anime and redub it.
Oh, that's awesome!
And at the time, this gives you the date of it. Well, I mean, it's been done to death nowadays. So back then, it was like cutting edge. And they were like, "Give me, you want Robotech? You want like all these like iconic anime things, like Battle of the, just crazy." At one point, they were like Dragon Ball Z, and I'm like, we can't take like ones that are like super iconic and redub it.
Right.
It's like. A, they're still going. B, they have a fan base that'll fucking savage it.
Totally.
So like, so there was this one I found. It was an offshoot of Robotech. And the pitch was, it was a guy who was a pilot who drove a plane and it would transform into a robot. So it was Robotech. It was one of the Macross 7, I think, or something like that. But it's so late down the thing, it was like this insane, no one cared about it. Right. So like, we'll take this one. And I said, and it was a scene where he's just playing guitar and stuff. That was the main character's thing. He had a guitar and crazy hair. And at the exact same time, Corey Feldman, before he went full nuts, was trying to do a band. And this is, I would go watch. I was like, holy shit! Like this. So, and he was always promoting his band. This is somewhere in the 2000s.
Sure,
and,
I remember that era.
Like, yeah, there was a Tower Records, and he performed there. I remember seeing him, and he treated it like, ladies and gentlemen, it was so awesome. Like, and it was like, just like 3 people standing there, like, but he acted as if it was like a stadium, and it was just everything about it was like kind of gothy weirdness. It was weird, but I was just like, I was in love with it because it was pure in its own weird insanity.
Earnestly,
it was like,
but
like earnest insanity. You know, it wasn't just like I want to be loved. It was like I'm in a different world, and it's like he saw the world differently. 100%.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in. I'm fucking in. And so then I came back and I pitched a sci-fi. I go, okay, this is Corey Feldman. It's actually Corey Feldman. And there's a scene where, like, in the cartoon where the guy, like, falls through the ground and, like, comes back up. And I go, he falls through the ground where he's buried alive for 200 years. And he comes up. It's the future. And his job is he has to drive a robot and shoot people. But he's just trying to get his band together. He's just trying to he's still trying to get his band. So there's always he's always been guitar and he's always pitching songs in the middle of like battles and stuff. Because the thing was like he's just this cool guy in his like pilot, blowing up people playing guitars. So it's like, and everyone else is his band, but they all work blowing shit up. And they were like, "Oh, it's fucking great!" And I was like, I played them music, and I played them interviews, and they're like, "We're doing this." And then so it got really far, and they were like prepping to go out to him. And then the animation company like pulled the plug on it because we had to get approval. The American people, the distribution company is like, yeah, we love this. But the Japanese, in Japan, if you create it, you have final say on anything.
Right.
And the creator was like, fuck you. It's like, like luckily before we went out to them, like we got the FU. And I remember like everybody at Sci-Fi was like loving it. And they had just gotten this new CEO who was like Hollywood as you can get. So then they're like, well, let's find a new show. And I found one that we got to pre-approve, but it was totally different. The concept was like so different. And he was like, dude, I heard about this. I totally get it. I fucking love it. And this is everybody's in this meeting because he's the new CEO.
Right.
There's like the president, the vice president, the secretary. And I'm like, okay, like people from 4th floor. And I'm like, okay, all right. And he's just spewing off about how fucking genius I am. And then he goes like, and I fucking love it. Corey Feldman, man. Corey Feldman's going to blow their minds. Enough time had passed now where Corey Feldman, it's been another 6 months, went from like hilariously awesome to like, oh, there's something not quite right. And he had done a few things like not great. And I was like, and it's not the only reason I would have done that is because it was a parody of Corey Feldman's life that matched this perfectly. And it, but like the new animation didn't match. So I said to the guy, this is the weirdest thing. Like literally, like that's fucking genius. And he goes, Corey Feldman. I go, oh yeah, no, Corey Feldman's not right for this new version. Like, no, well, no, you think of the old one. And he goes, what do you mean? I go like, well, no, this is a different story. It's this one. And it's just Corey Feldman's not right. And he goes, so you're saying no? I go, like, and I go, I guess so. Yeah, no. And he goes, okay. All right. Meeting over, everybody. Meeting over. Everybody out. And I was like, oh, God.
Wow. There's a lesson.
There's a lesson. I mean, this show still went on, but it was not the love that.
Oh, well, the show still went on, though.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
but like, that was my big lesson in like, just say like that would be awesome. And
Right.
they'd tell
Just be
me,
like, yeah, that'd be great. And I don't know how this would work, but
well, then like future Fred would have gone like, sure, man, let's go for it. And then
Right.
been like, we reached out, he can't do it.
Right. Totally.
So, but yeah,
That's fucking fantastic advice.
yeah, man. That's just like I said, like I only know failure.
He says as he has a show going and other shit in development.
But they're all gonna like. I go into it's like the samurai that wins the battle has already walked onto the battlefield, is already dead. Like you know what I mean? Like I just walk on going like yeah. Like, hey man, you're a billionaire. Sure, okay. Like I have been told like several fucking times, pardon my language, like you're gonna be a millionaire. Like I remember I sold a show. A friend of mine and I came up with this like animated show, and we had MTV and Cartoon Network fighting over it.
Wow.
Like, apparently I had friends that worked at Cartoon Network, and the head of that thing was running around going, does anybody know Fred Belford? Does anybody know Fred Belford? They go, call him right now and tell him he's got to come with us. And my agent at the time was like, shit. Like, and they were like, you're going to be the next South Park. We're pairing you with South Park. And then MTV was like, hey, we got MTV2. We're here's $40, and then, and I was like, oh my God. So we sold it and we went with, to be the next South Park. And we're like, shit, we're going to be rich. And it was this weird, like, literally, it went from, you're the greatest thing ever. We wrote a script where our agent was like, you guys, this is one of the funniest scripts I've ever read. And like, like he was not just trying to blow smoke. We were so proud of it. And it just sort of like, the guy who was the head of it, the vice president was reading it, but he's like, I'm going on vacation. I'll take it with me. Like, just this weird momentum thing. And it just sort of tapered off and fizzled. And we're like, so we don't have no show? You loved it so much. What the? And it's like, I didn't think it was going to be this. It's like, this is super fucking funny. It's like, well, I don't think it's funny. Okay. Like,
right.
Like, okay, well, maybe you don't read it when you're on the fucking beach. And then,
but it's these arbitrary things that are so far out of your control that dictate so much of your career, basically, no matter where you are in your career.
Yeah. And I'm sure, but other people have, if I had like muscle, like real muscle, like, oh, he's got a show on this, and they'd probably be a little more like, like, well, we got to give him this show. Like I've lost shows to people because like, oh, this guy had this show. I was like, that show sucked, but it's like they had that show.
He had that show.
And that's a big deal. And gosh, I mean, I can just tell you millions of things like that. Like every show where it's like, you're like, one time I sold a show to G4, walked in the room. I was just with these brand new managers. They loved it. And they go like, we fucking love it. And I was like, we want to do this. We're going full board. And I walk up to me and I go, did we just sell this in the room? They go, we just sold this in the room. That's fucking amazing. They're like, we'll talk to you next week. Okay, great. This is amazing. Within the week, it was this big announcement. All of a sudden, nobody knew about it. G4 was being canceled and being replaced with like a new format where it's just cars.
Right.
Like we're just the all dudes network, but we just watch cars and bikinis. I'm like, there's no more comedy.
Right.
What else? I sold the show to an animation network, with a very popular sponge, and then they're like, this lady's like, I fucking love it. It's great. Goes, and then development one by one. Like, so she left company. I'm like, okay. And then, so who do I go to now? Oh, I'll go to this person. This person leaves the company. Okay. Who do I go to? You got to go to the head. The head, he's no longer with this company. And I go like, well, who do I talk to? And they're like, well, there's no really development, no one in development right now. So just tight.
Fuck.
So finally they moved some guy over and he's like, hey, what do you got? And I was like, it's something that everybody else is excited. Like, it's like, it happened to me so many times. Yeah. Like, and I remember, so that story was like, so I go into this other animation company, it's my dream company. And this guy goes, I fucking, like, I love this. This is great. I'm doing this, developing something for him. And I go like, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be here next week. I tell him the story and I go, it's a joke. And he's like, ha, 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 ha. He was not there next week. So, I mean, it's just this thing of like,
yeah.
Like I said, like, I'm always like, too early or too late. I've got to
Yeah.
find my my sweet spot where I got to wait till like it's like, okay, we just made a fresh group of hires. I'm in now. I'll pitch.
Right.
So
Yeah,
but
man.
I can go like literally like 10 shows like that I sold that have, something like that has happened each time.
But the bottom line is you just got to keep going forward because that shit is completely out of you. can only control what you can control, basically.
Yeah, and I think the trick is also, I think most people would, like, also never give up on things that you believe in.
Right.
It's going to be the most positive thing I'll tell you. Like,
yeah.
Like I said, I sold the show to MTV, failed, then I resold it to HBO years later. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So you never know what you're going to be able to. I've had stuff that's like 10 years old that people have been like, that's amazing. Right. And I pitched it when I first came up with it, and people were like, no, nobody wants to see that. I remember, okay, and this is my last story. I remember I pitched in the late 90s a reality television show where it ends with people getting married. Is like what you're trying to get on camera. And I pitched it was right when reality television was still like it was the real world, and like a couple things started to bubble over, and I'm like, this is gonna, like, I was like, I didn't call it reality television, but I was like, this is an awesome like game show, you think? And I had two, like, I want to say it was like ABC and like CBS, like they're like big places, like and I don't know if it was them for sure, but it was like one of those. And they said, in there, one guy said the exact word: nobody will ever get married on a TV show. It'll never happen. And I was like,
okay, lad.
Yeah, I was like, but I mean, I was like, okay, I guess you're right. And then like a few years later, it's like, he's a slob and they're gonna get married. You know, like meet Joe Blow, and it's like it became like everyone was fucking getting married. You know, I was like, I was ahead of my time.
I mean,
yeah.
If that happens and you see it actually come to pass a couple of years later, and you're able to keep going and not like get so resentful that you just shut down, like, I mean, that's the resolve I guess you need, you know, just to be able to take those fucking lump after, because that's what I mean, just lump after lump after lump, huh?
There's a lot of lumps. Yeah. I mean, it's you know, like, I'm sort of breaking even, you know, like, for every positive thing, you know, but I'm also not trying to sell big time movie scripts, right? You know, so I don't know. And those guys have their own problems. Yeah, I had the friend I worked with in the movie awards said to me at one point, he goes, I'm gonna find something else to do. And he's making like millions of dollars selling his movie scripts, but something happens each time that one won't be made. You know, sort of stories like mine, but like the difference is he's getting millions. Right. There's one like, oh, Jim Carrey doesn't want to do it, you know? Right. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And then so it's a different set of problems wherever you are. And it's just a matter of like what you can take. And he reinvented himself and has a crazy successful thing in entertainment right now. So that's awesome. With books and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Success breeds success. Momentum breeds momentum.
Right. Just keep pushing forward. Just keep pushing forward. One foot in the front of the other. One day at a time.
Yeah.
Keep coming back.
You gotta take your excuses and not do them, and make your excuse list and cross them off. Because like, nobody gives a shit if you have to stay up all night with and wake up early for a kid. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
You're not gonna be able to say like, oh, I had a real busy week with my kid.
Script would have been better if I wasn't awake.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a fuck.
You guys, I wouldn't make this deadline, but you know, first grade, you know what that's going to be like, right? Gonna buy a backpack this week.
Yeah. All right, man.
Later. Good luck making some sort of coherent shit out of all this shit.
Oh, it's going to be an hour and 54 minutes, dude.
Has it been that long?
Yep.
Oh, man, I don't have this kind of time.
I'm just going to put this shit up there.
I left my kid in the bathtub.
All right, Fred.
All right, Nick. Good luck.
Hopefully I see you soon, buddy.
Good luck tricking people into listening to this, and hopefully someone just gives you a job out of it.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you later when we're not recording ourselves. Bye.
Yeah, right, bye.